Today we're talking about Bandon, Oregon, one of the greatest towns on the southern Oregon coast and really in all of the Oregon coast as a whole. We got trees, we got cheese, we got cranberries. Yes, it's Oregon's cranberry capital. And yes, of course, we got golf. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of living in Bandon, Oregon, and we're getting into it right now. What's up, everybody? This is Clem with the Home Team Brokers coming to you from the Oregon coast. If this is your first time to the channel, living on the Oregon coast, and you want to learn everything there is to know about what it's like to live, work, eat, sleep, play, and yes, the pros and cons of living on the Oregon coast, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell icon to make sure you are notified every time we drop a new video. We get people reaching out to us all the time who are thinking about buying a home, selling a home, relocating to the Oregon coast, and we love to hear from you. So if you're thinking about buying a home at the Oregon coast, selling, or if you just want to get more information, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, even schedule a Zoom call in the description below of this video. However you decide to get a hold of us, we have your back when it comes to moving to the Oregon coast. All right, so getting right into it, the pros and cons of living in Bandon, Oregon. Bandon is definitely one of my favorite towns on the Oregon coast. There's a lot to love, but for sure there's some downside, and depending on what you're looking for in an Oregon coast town, we're gonna talk about what makes Bandon so great and what might be some of the things that may make it not so great. Bandon is situated on the southern Oregon coast. It is about a 30-minute drive south of Coos Bay, North Bend, and it's about 30 minutes to the north of Port Orford. So it definitely has its own footprint in the area. There are so many activities, so many things you can do there. Beautiful, amongst the most beautiful scenery on the Oregon coast. The town is awesome. A lot of great restaurants, shops, galleries, bars, breweries, wine tasting rooms, you name it, all the things that make an Oregon coast town so great, everything is right there in Bandon. The weather tends to be a little bit warmer than the rest of the Oregon coast, as it typically is on that southern Oregon coast region. So you have a little bit of a better climate. You are much further away from Portland and some bigger towns though. So you're looking at being about due west of Roseburg, Oregon, which is a smaller town. You also have towns like Grants Pass, Medford, and Ashland in southern Oregon as well. So probably the majority of the drive-in tourists from Oregon are coming from that southern Oregon region. If you want to get up to Portland, you're looking at probably a 4.5-hour drive one way. So definitely something to take into consideration, but that's part of what makes Bandon so great is, it is a little bit hidden, it is a little bit off the beaten path, but it has everything that you might be looking for, potentially. We'll talk about that in this video today. All right, so getting right into it, Bandon has so much to do and year round. We talked about the temperature and the weather being pretty mild throughout the year. You can get some really sunny days in December, January. Yes, you get some rain. Yes, you get some overcast. You're going to get that anywhere on the Oregon coast, but we're talking about fishing, hiking, biking, beach going, kiteboarding, windsurfing. There's so much to do in Bandon and so much that the area provides as far as these different outdoor activities. And you can't talk about Bandon without talking about the Bandon Dunes Resort, the golf courses there. There is 5, I believe 6 now, golf courses at the Bandon Dunes Resort. Many of them are ranked amongst the best public courses in the country, and Bandon is an international destination for golf. So brings in a lot of people, brings in a lot of tourism. There are places to stay up at the golf resort, but people also do stay in town as well. So if you're looking at an investment in property in Bandon as more of a second home or potentially a vacation rental that you're going to rent out, Bandon is definitely one of the top destinations on the coast, not only for people coming from Oregon, but really from all around the world to play those great golf courses. And next on the list is the weather, like we talked about. So, this is part of what allows you to do all of these great activities year round. We're talking about an average high of about 61 throughout the year and an average low of about 45. So that's a pretty tight range. You know what you're getting. You can definitely get acclimated if you're coming from a warmer climate, but Bandon gets about 190 sunny days a year. So, for the rain, the wind, the overcast, you get a lot of sunshine as well, and plenty of days that you can get out and do the things that you want to do. And really throughout the summer, you're looking at an average high of kind of 70, maybe mid to low 70s, throughout the course of July, August, and September. So, it can get a little warm. It's not going to get incredibly hot. It's not going to be too hot, but the weather is definitely something that brings people to the area, and it's definitely something that keeps people in the area as well. All right, so next are the home values. Bandon is pretty attainable at about $220,000 median sale price, but there is a really big range. So, you're probably not going to come into Bandon and buy a home for $200,000 to $250,000. There are a lot of homes that are $500,000, $750,000, up to $1 million. But you can get a lot for that budget. So, depending on what you're looking for and what's going to suit you best, Bandon does tend to be pretty affordable, as does most of the Oregon coast. And something to note is that home values over the last 12 months are up 18% in Bandon. So that's something that, shows a good trajectory as far as an investment, whether it is a full-time residence or a second home or a vacation rental. All right, next on the list, Bandon has been rated the 12th most popular place in Oregon to retire. The average age is about 55, so you're looking at a huge population of people living in Bandon that are 55 and older. I should mention too that Bandon has about 32,000 residents as far as the population goes, so it is a relatively small town, compared to some of the other towns on the Oregon coast. Once you get in Bandon and kind of get a feel for what Bandon has to offer, the scenery, the shops, the restaurants, things like that, you can see why it would be a great place to retire, and it's a very popular retirement destination. So depending on your age and what you're looking for, Bandon definitely caters to more of a retirement age range or group. But there's definitely young working professionals there. There's definitely a range. So I think anybody could really fit in Bandon, but just know that the average age does tend to skew a little bit older, making it a great place to retire if you have your eyes on the Oregon coast. Additionally, too, another great thing about Bandon is it is rated great for crime. According to niche.com, it gets an A rating. Crime is very low, so it's just not something that you're going to have to really worry too much about if you are living in Bandon. So what are some of the downsides of living in Bandon? Well, it is hard to find housing, because it is a smaller town, yet it is a popular destination. It is hard to find homes for sale. It is even hard to find places to rent. So if you really have your heart set on Bandon, you may have to wait a little bit longer to find the home that is going to be best for you. But because of all the great things we mentioned, obviously, it can definitely be worth the wait, but, it's not the case where you have a huge catalog of homes for sale to choose from. Housing is relatively scarce in Bandon, and that can definitely be a downside if it is a place that you have your eyes on. Another thing about Bandon that could be looked at as something more on the negative side could be a positive too, depending on what you're looking for, but it is really isolated. Like I mentioned, Coos Bay and North Bend are about 30 minutes to the north. Port Orford about 30 minutes to the south. You're going to have about an hour and a half to 2-hour drive to Roseburg. And again, you're looking at 4 to 5 hours driving to Portland. So I drove from Portland to Bandon to go play golf one time, and I had to drive back that same day. So I had to leave at 5 in the morning. I got home at 9 p.m. So, you know, if you're coming in from out of state in particular, and having accessibility to Portland, Salem, Eugene, some of, you know, the larger population centers in the state, you are going to be really far away. So doing a day trip to these areas isn't necessarily viable. It can totally be done, but point being is Bandon is very isolated in terms of where it's set geographically on the map. Another thing about Bandon too is it has a history of wildfires. If we're looking at potential natural disasters and how that could, you know, be a safety concern or of any risk to you as somebody who's moving to Bandon, really a lot of Oregon and different places up and down the coast, you know, might be in kind of more of a danger zone when it comes to fire hazard or risk. You know, Oregon is a very heavily wooded state. The coastal range sits right behind to the east, just about every town on the Oregon coast. But in 1936, the entire town actually burnt down. They had to rebuild it. Just a couple of years ago in Southern Oregon, there was the Chetco fire, which was really threatening to break into, you know, Bandon city limits. So that was just about 2 or 3 years ago. So there is some risk there. Probably shouldn't be too much of a deterrent, but you know, when you look at areas that you're moving to, when you look at potential natural disasters, wildfires are definitely on that list if you're talking about Bandon. And then you have to look at flood risks too. I mean, really all up and down the Oregon coast, you have tsunami zones. You know, all the different cities have evacuation routes. It's generally not something that, you know, happens all the time. If there is a tsunami from an earthquake off the coast, you might get a little bit higher waves. But, you know, there's always that threat of kind of a big earthquake coming and, you know, the tsunamis that could follow that. And some of Bandon, if you look at the city limits, falls within some moderate risk in terms of flooding or a flood zone. So again, you know, probably shouldn't be a huge deterrent necessarily, but definitely something you want to educate yourself about if you are moving to the area, because you're right on the beach. You're in an area where, you know, earthquakes can happen, and the tsunamis that come from that are definitely a risk. I mean, enough of a risk in terms of the potential that, you know, there is an evacuation route, there are drills, there are things like that put in place to, you know, mitigate not just damage, but, you know, to protect the people who live there. All right, another thing about Bandon is, you know, it is popular, so it can get crowded. And if you look at some of the towns up and down the Oregon coast that are, you know, have a pretty small footprint, and, you know, you're looking at 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people in terms of population, you know, it's pretty condensed if you look at, in particular, kind of the in-town or downtown area. And it is a big tourist destination. So weekends, warmer parts of the year in particular, but really year-round because of the golf course especially, there's a lot of people. I mean, I think every time I've been through Bandon, you know, traffic moves pretty slow through the main streets, and there's a lot of people on the sidewalk, and there's a lot of people at the restaurant. So, you know, waiting times, crowds, those are things that you definitely have to kind of factor in if you are moving to Bandon and could see yourself spending a lot of time in the downtown area. So overall, I mean, there's a lot to love about Bandon, and depending on what type of town, what size of town you're looking for, you know, if you're looking for a place that does have more tourism, or if that's not something, you know, that you necessarily want to have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, there are some considerations about Bandon, you know, that, you know, might make it a place that just doesn't necessarily suit exactly what you're looking for. But really the best thing we can do is just get in touch and, you know, let's talk about what areas, you know, you feel like are going to suit your lifestyle best, what types of areas you could see yourself living in. And Bandon may be on that list, but either way, we can create a short list of areas that make the most sense for you. and talk about what does housing look like, what's going to make the most sense, and go from there. So if you are thinking about buying a home in Bandon or anywhere on the Oregon coast, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or again, even schedule a Zoom call in the description below. However you decide to get a hold of us, we have your back when it comes to moving to the Oregon coast. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.